I've been an iPhone user ever since the iPhone 6, and now I own an iPhone 13 Pro Max, which I love because it finally has the 120Hz ProMotion display, which works very well while also having pretty much the best battery life that you can get on any flagship phone. However, Samsung just released their Galaxy S22 Ultra, and I've been playing around with it for over a week now, and I've gotta say that I'm pretty impressed. But at the same time, there are a couple of things that I'm disappointed about. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about my experience with the S22 Ultra over the past week, including both the pros and the cons, because yes, this phone is definitely not perfect. But before I get into that, let's talk about the differences in design. First of all, I absolutely love the design of the S22 Ultra compared to the old S21 Ultra, which I absolutely couldn't stand because first of all, you got this massive metal brick of a camera bump that's basically welded to the side. I can't stand it, it's just so chunky. And now, this new design with the separated camera bumps and the contrast, especially with this new white finish, this looks absolutely amazing and it destroys the old design. It just looks so good. And comparing it to the current iPhone 13 Pro Max design, first of all, I have a leather skin from Nomad. I love this skin, but I'd honestly say that this new design of the S22 Ultra basically beats out the iPhone because honestly, I'm getting kind of bored of this look and this design, and this just looks so clean to me. And now I do want to mention that the S21 Ultra was the first S series to get S Pen support, but what really annoyed me was that you had to carry the S Pen outside of the S21 Ultra because it didn't have any slot for the S Pen like the new S22 Ultra does, thankfully, because it's basically built with the same Note design as the Note 20 Ultra. It's basically the same thing rebranded as an S22, and I honestly do not mind because I love this design and I love that you get to store the S Pen inside of the actual phone itself. And now another thing that I really like about this S22 Ultra is that this year Samsung completely differentiated it from the lower end S22 and S22 Plus. So now you actually get a different design and better design with the Ultra model compared to previous years where they all basically look the same and there wasn't really a good reason to pay for the Ultra. And compared to the iPhone, another thing I really like about it is that you have those rounded edges on the sides so it fits into your palm nicely, and even though it's basically a bigger phone than the iPhone, it seems to fit better than the 13 Pro Max, which has these flat sides, so it kind of digs into your palm a little bit and it feels thicker, feels kind of like a brick compared to this nice and smooth S22 Ultra. And then of course it has the single camera hole punch, which looks incredibly clean and so much better than the notch. Even though the 13 Pro Max got a smaller notch, this just looks miles better. And I know that we have rumors for the next iPhone 14 Pro coming with that new dual pill-shaped plus cutout design, so I'm really excited for that. But even with that dual design, I think the single camera cutout is still more clean. But of course, this doesn't have any kind of special Face ID system or anything like that, which the iPhone has, and it works incredibly well. So I'm gonna give Apple a break here because Face ID, I'd say, is still better than the under-display Touch ID on the S22 Ultra. Even though this is faster than previous years, you literally can't beat Face ID because it now supports masks. So there's literally no drawback to Face ID, and I think it is miles better than any kind of under-display fingerprint scanner. And now with the design out of the way and before I get into the performance, I want to talk about some of the quality of life features that are really important to me, like for example, the speakers. I am completely disappointed in these speakers because the ones on the iPhone sound better in pretty much every way. They're louder, they have sharper and higher highs, they have much more bass, and the overall soundstage is basically wider, sounds so much better. And I know you guys didn't believe us when we showed you in our hands-on comparison, so we ended up comparing the S22 Ultra to both the old S21 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra, all of them with Dolby Atmos turned on, And yes, we proved that both of those phones actually sound better than the new S22 Ultra, which is really weird and it makes no sense at all, but that's the reality. And our theory for this is that the S22 Ultra has basically the same chassis design as the Note 20 Ultra, but it packs a larger 5,000 milliamp hour battery compared to 4,500, which obviously cuts down on the internal space. So maybe Samsung had to make the speaker enclosures a little bit smaller to fit in the larger battery, but either way, I am disappointed in the speakers. Now, in terms of the display, Samsung made some massive claims saying that the display can go up to 1750 nits, which is very impressive compared to the iPhone's 1200 nits. However, when we started testing it and comparing it to the iPhone, we started noticing some issues. First of all, after turning on the extra brightness setting, turning off adaptive brightness, and manually adjusting both the S22 Ultra and the iPhone to maximum brightness, they ended up looking basically the same. But then I came across a photo that Golden Reviewer posted on Twitter showing that the S22 was actually brighter. So we ended up running some tests and we discovered that if both phones are on a white page, similar to Google's homepage, they're basically the same in terms of brightness. But when you switch over to something that has much less white on the display, the S22 Ultra does in fact get brighter than the iPhone. So what this tells us is that Samsung dims down the display depending on how much white is on the screen to help save battery life. And just to confirm that this is true, we ran an OLED ABL test which cycles between small and large white boxes, and as you can see, when the box gets smaller, the S22 Ultra's display gets significantly brighter compared to the iPhone, which stays basically flat in terms of brightness no matter how big the white box is. And then when the box gets larger, the Samsung dims down close to around as bright as the iPhone. And then when you go to the full white page like we did earlier, you can see that in this case, the iPhone was actually a little bit brighter. And just to make these completely fair, we compare the S22 Ultra to both the S21 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra outside in bright daylight with adaptive brightness on, and to our surprise, the S22 Ultra wasn't any brighter at all, no matter what we tried, making sure that all of the settings were turned on. So because of that, we opened up an HDR video within YouTube where it definitely should have shined, and it looked the worst out of all three phones by far, which made no sense at all, and yes, it was also worse than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So I'm not sure if there's some kind of software issue going on that Samsung needs to fix, but it's a bit disappointing compared to what Samsung led us to believe with the whole 1750 nit brightness claim. Now moving forward, a couple of other things were a bit disappointing, even though Samsung didn't necessarily make any big claims like they did with the brightness. But when we compared the 5G speeds of the new S22 Ultra to the older phones, unfortunately, within our concrete office building, the older S21 Ultra performed better, getting almost 2 times faster download speeds than the S22 Ultra. And then when we went outside on the roof, the old S21 Ultra was consistently giving us higher upload speeds than the new one, which is also a bit weird. So maybe there's a chance that Samsung's trying to give this thing better battery life by maybe tuning down the power of the 5G antenna. I'm not sure, but I expected to get the best performance with this thing, and we didn't. And then speaking of battery life, while we didn't do a battery drain test ourselves, Mr. Who's the Boss did, and he concluded that the new S22 Ultra actually got worse battery life than the old S21 Ultra, which doesn't make any sense at all because the new one has a bit less resolution. It comes with a new, more efficient 4nm chip, which they advertised, as well as the new display that can go down to 1 Hz refresh rate instead of 10 Hz on the old model. So there's no excuse for having a decrease in battery life with the new model. So I went back to Mr. Who's the Boss's previous iPhone battery drain test, and apparently the regular 6.1-inch iPhone 13 Pro gets better battery life than the new S22 Ultra, with the 13 Pro Max model that I have absolutely destroying it by over 2 hours. And once again, let me remind you that this comes with the newest 4nm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip compared to Apple's 5nm A15 Bionic, so it should technically be more efficient, but it's not. And now moving over to the actual performance, the overall snappiness of the Ultra is great, but I did have some issues in terms of high performance gaming. When playing Genshin Impact at maxed out settings, the S22 Ultra seems to run at a lower frame rate compared to the iPhone, which was confirmed by Golden Reviewer on YouTube who tracked the FPS on both phones over a 15-minute gaming session, showing that the iPhone averaged at 59.2 FPS, almost perfect, while the S22 Ultra ran at 33.5, almost 2 times lower. Now, in my personal experience, the iPhone still has a bit of a display dimming issue if your brightness is set to 80% or higher, so the S22 Ultra has the advantage there because of the better cooling system. Now, in many of the other common games that aren't as demanding like COD Mobile, it ran just fine with no issues at all, giving you a great gaming experience. But the biggest problem that I had that really disappointed me was that within a lot of my favorite games like League of Legends Wild Rift and Pokemon Unite, you are not able to go up to 120 FPS on the S22 Ultra, which is a big deal if you want to stay competitive. And this really sucks because the iPhone 13 Pro Max can run at basically perfect 120 FPS in both of those games with no issues, while the Samsung couldn't even run at a solid 60 FPS in Pokemon Unite, which was really weird. And of course, looking at the benchmarks, the iPhone destroys the Samsung in basically every way, which is pretty unfortunate. But the final saving grace of the S22 Ultra is the new camera updates, and to be honest, Samsung absolutely nailed it this year with very clear improvements. And I know this for sure because we made an unbiased blind camera comparison against the new iPhone 13 Pro, where Max took photos with his family on both of these phones, and our main editor Angelica and I voted for which photos we liked the best, and in my case, the Samsung easily won the test while Angelica got a tie. And then we compared the S22 Ultra to both the Note 20 Ultra and the S21 Ultra, and it was a massive win for the new model, making it clear that Samsung killed it in terms of the cameras. But all in all, I think Samsung has created the best flagship smartphone that they've made in years, especially in terms of the design and camera quality, but I'm still a bit disappointed about a few of the features like the display brightness claims, the lackluster speaker quality, and the upsetting gaming performance. And in terms of how it compares to the iPhone, I think they're just about neck and neck considering the fact that the S22 Ultra is more expensive, so I honestly wouldn't want to switch to it, especially since I really love iOS and I'm looking forward to the new iPhone 14 Pro Max, which I think is gonna destroy this phone in multiple ways. So hopefully you enjoyed this review, and if you did, go ahead and click the circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one. Definitely check out our camera comparisons and our tests right over there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.